good morning, everyone. This is just a little kind of hello before you get into the video about communication. So I just wanted to explain a little bit about what we're doing. So yeah, if you think back to the end of last term, I had a little quick meeting with you guys on the Thursday before you all broke up for the holidays, and just put it to you that this term, we sort of figured out between us that this term we would have focuses for humanities for the week, and then there'd be something different the next week and different the next week. So that was that, and that's how we've ended up with this week's focus, which I've chosen to be communication. So yeah, so then the other thing is that I came up to Auckland in the first week of the holidays and met some of you, which was great. Thank you so much for coming down, and I'm sure I'll see the rest of you at some stage. And we talked about that the Zoom meetings that we last term were doing at the start of humanities weren't that kind of successful, and so I've decided that this term, for at least a while, I'm gonna have a go at making little videos for you, and then basing the kind of the activities that I'm thinking about off these videos. So today's is the first one, so bear with me. It's not exactly high professional quality, so I'm still figuring out the best way to do stuff like this. So I'm learning too, so yeah, just do be patient, bear with me. But yeah, so you will now go into the video that I made about communication, and yeah, it's just me talking about a bunch of stuff basically, but at least it means you can watch it at your own pace. You can pause it, you can come back to it later, you can rewind bits or whatever, yeah, so anyway, have fun, and I will see you later on. What's up, guys? So I'm focusing this week on communication. Just that teensy little idea. You know, humans do it, but not just humans do it. So at its most basic form, communication is something that happens all throughout nature, from the body language of a cat that's feeling a bit freaked out, to the petals on a flower saying to a bee, "Hey bee, get your butt down here, there's some good pollen going down, there's some good nectar going down," to the markings on those tiny little frogs, you know, in the South American jungle, the poison dart frog, crazy colors communicating, "Don't come near me, don't do that." And of course, if you don't follow that line of communication, you die. Right through to the gibbons at the Wellington Zoo that communicate every morning by going whoop, 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 whoop. Now we all know how important communication is for humans, but let's not forget the less obvious stuff. For example, clothes. We dress and we communicate. We communicate about how we want to be seen in the world, whether we want to be trustworthy, reliable, whether we want to belong to a particular group, or whether we want to be seen as not belonging to a group. All of these things come into communication as well. And there are other things as well, like body language. You might think it's quite universal and obvious and shared with everyone, things like what a smile means, what a scowl means. But it turns out it's not completely universal. Some of these things are actually cultural. For instance, imagine a young Samoan boy who's been growled by his teacher. He looks down because in his family and in his culture, it is disrespectful to look at a teacher, an elder, when they're grumpy. From the teacher's point of view, it looks disrespectful because he's not making eye contact. So there's a mismatch, and that's part of communication as well. Okay, so what? Communication. It's important. Why study it? Well, in my opinion, it's just interesting enough to study, and it's something we do every day. So why not take a closer look? So I guess my first big milestone that I want you to think about is cave paintings. And in the document and links that go with this video that I'm making is some cool stuff about some really early cave paintings that humans made. And what I like to know about that is that people bothered to put these symbols and pictures on walls using charcoal and ochre, like coloured red sort of clay that they would smear into the walls. And there's a few pretty cool things about that. Like some of them would walk into these caves for half a day or longer. Sometimes they would have to squeeze through tiny little gaps in order to get to the place they wanted to go. They didn't have torches, or rather not ones that we know about, so they would have things like sticks with animal fat wrapped around them and then light that and then take that into the cave. And then they would do their symbols and their paintings. So they went to a lot of effort to get these cave paintings happening. Why? It was obviously important enough for them to communicate. What they were exactly communicating, we're not 100% sure. But that it was important enough for them to do it, and that's pretty cool. So check out the videos about cave paintings if you're interested in more. Now, the next idea that I want to talk about is ideograms. So if we look at this one, basic little picture just to represent an idea or a thing. So these became really important, and you can kind of imagine these early humans, I'm talking about maybe 10,000 years ago or so, that started to be able to scratch into surfaces and put into some very basic ways of passing on information, maybe like on a goat skin with a little mark on it. Ideas that could be communicated from one person to another or displayed for lots of people to be able to see. And this was a pretty cool early form of written communication that is also worth checking out if you're interested in more, and maybe having a go at making some of your own ideograms. Here's that morning one again, just to see what you think's been represented there to make the idea of morning. And just to say about the ideograms as well, that these are what hieroglyphs are in ancient Egypt, and also a lot of what makes up the Chinese characters in use today in China. So check those out, they're pretty cool. Okay, so that's pretty neat that you're a few thousand years ago and you're living in a society where you can communicate with these ideograms like the morning one. But it's quite limited, and so really the big step up was the alphabet. Because what you've got with alphabets is you've got a symbol that represents a sound. So that gives you a lot of flexibility. It means you can make up these things called words. You can combine a whole lot of symbols and combine a whole lot of sounds, which is what speech is. And so now you've got a really good representation of speech, but now it's written. So this is a really, really big leap forward for humans, is when they started to make alphabets. And alphabets started, again, in around Egypt, and really spread. This idea of alphabets spread up through Europe and across into Asia. And meanwhile, over in South America, the Mayans and the Olmecs, looks like they were making their own alphabets completely independent of what was going on in Egypt and Europe and Mesopotamia and that whole thing there.